Right on time, I would like to introduce our next speaker. Derrick James is Director of Government Affairs at Amtrak. He understands the Midwest, having been born and raised in Chicago, spending his college years in the small college town of Ames, Iowa. We first interacted when I was part of what was then called the Chicago Bicycle Federation, trying to get bikes on the trains. And we've made some recent progress on that with the new baggage cars coming in and some other efforts that Derrick won't talk to you about today, but was very much a part of. So thank you very much for Derrick for coming.
Thank you, Rick. Is this the device that controls that?
That is the device.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Make sure I got it. Oh, I have it. Excellent. Well, good morning, everyone. Can folks hear me okay? Excellent. Glad to be here with you today. Thank you, Rick, for the introduction. And by the way, I'm not that offended, but I actually spent my college years in Iowa City at another university, not in Ames. I wanted to talk to you guys today a little bit about some of the work that we're doing at Union Station, which is the centerpiece of any development that involves high-speed rail in the Midwest. I'm with Amtrak, as Rick said, and we have a responsibility to maintain this asset and prepare it for a future with more passengers and more trains. And we think we've got a plan in cooperation with the city and the RTA and Metra to sort of move this facility forward into the next century of its service. Union Station, the crown jewel of the Amtrak system here in the Midwest. As many of you know, it's the fourth busiest station in the Amtrak network. It's the third busiest passenger rail station in the United States. Serves more than 300 trains on any weekday, that's Metra and Amtrak, and serves 6 of Metra's 11 routes. We are engaged in a large-scale, multi-year planning process with several partners here to improve the circulation and safety at Union Station, to increase its capacity, and to enhance the customer experience. For our customers on Amtrak, their first and last experience is the station that they arrive or depart at. Right now, what we have done is, in cooperation, again, like I said, with the City of Chicago, and with Metra and the RTA, we have issued an RFI. We're looking for folks to help us kind of envision what the station could be on a larger scale and to help us deal with some of the near-term and mid-term issues in terms of capacity and the ability to handle the customers not only that we have today, that we expect to handle in the future. Just a little bit of history for you. On the upper right-hand corner here, you'll see the original station that the Union Station that we know today replaced. It opened in 1881, served primarily by the Pennsylvania Railroad on a block about 1 north of the existing Union Station. The Union Station, which we know and love today, on the bottom right hand here, was designed originally by Daniel Burnham as part of the 1909 plan of Chicago to consolidate stations in the western part of the loop. Unfortunately, we lost Mr. Burnham before the building was completed, and it was finished by the noted Chicago architecture firm of Graham, Anderson, Probst, and White, the architects for several noteworthy buildings here in Chicago, including the Merchandise Mart, the Field Museum, and the Wrigley Building. The Union Station Company, which still exists to this day, constructed the building, and it opened in 1925. Here's some examples of what this station originally looked like. It is the only example in the United States of a double stub-end station. There are 24 tracks that approach from 2 directions. There are 2 or 3 through tracks, which are important to Rick's Crossrail proposal, I'll note, on the east side of the station next to the river. Here the image you'll see is of the original concourse building, which unfortunately we lost. It was demolished in the 1960s as the Union Station Company was looking for ways to maximize its revenue and decrease its losses in an age when passenger traffic was declining. Here's some images of the building during its heyday. It was quite a grand structure. It was like a city within a city, included restaurants, gift shops, a women's lounge, a jail, baggage carousels, underground taxi circulation areas, quite the wonderful facility. Here is an image of the Golden Lion restaurant, which was the high-end dining facility in the station. Unfortunately, as rail passenger traffic declined throughout the 1960s, many of these spaces around the Great Hall were closed and underutilized and sort of left for a future day. What we're doing now today at Amtrak is we are attempting to reactivate those spaces and bring them back into the public use for a day when we are seeing increasing passenger traffic both at Amtrak and Metra, and working with the states to bring in even more passenger trains. Here's the Fred Harvey lunchroom, again a space that we hope to activate but which is now abandoned. One of the things that we're doing today to sort of improve the circulation and flow within the station itself is we are relocating the Metropolitan Lounge from trackside back to the Great Hall. Here's an image of the entrance that will be on the exterior of the station along Canal Street behind the colonnade. The Metropolitan Lounge space will be quite a grand space relative to what it is now. We will see it will have 2 levels, and we will allow sunlight to stream into the space, and it will grow the space to be able to handle the increasing number of business travelers that we expect to be seeing on more and more Midwestern trains that we hope to be adding. Here's a shot of the entrance to the Metropolitan Lounge from the breezeway connecting the Great Hall to the concourse. One of the things that moving of the Metropolitan Lounge is allowing us to do is to relocate the ticketing function from in the concourse to the Great Hall, which, as you'll see later, will allow us to open that space up and improve the traffic flow by shifting ticketing away from the concourse. We have already inked agreements with other rental car companies. For those of you who come to Union Station, you know that Hertz is the sole rental car agency there. Part of the Metropolitan Lounge rebuild is to fashion a series of desks for the rental car agencies. The Metropolitan Lounge reconstruction will be done this summer, and we will be able to offer our customers more rental car agencies than just Hertz. Here's an interior image of what the Metropolitan Lounge will look like. Again, a very modern, up-to-date space, which will provide, as we do in our Metropolitan Lounge today, beverage service for our customers, snack service, more Wi-Fi service, more natural light coming in, more spaces to sort of lounge and to relax. A real key component of providing top-notch passenger rail service is giving our customers, especially those customers who are business travelers and paying top dollar, access to a very comfortable beginning or end to their journey. Again, here's an image of the staircase going up to the upper level. We've christened the upper level the Pennsylvania Room in honor of the Pennsylvania Railroad that had passenger ticket offices upstairs on the upper level. Going back to the master planning process, which will lead us even beyond the near-term improvements that Amtrak is making, again, a collaboration with the Chicago Department of Transportation, Metra, and the RTA, we are engaged in a process where we are looking at the facility in total, the commercial side of the facility as well as the transportation side, to come up with proposals that will improve the flow of trains, improve the number of trains that we can handle, and improve the flow of passengers to the station so we can dramatically increase the capacity of the facility. Several of the projects that are part of the Phase 1, some of which I've touched on, but they include the renovation and expansion of the Canal Street lobby, renovating and expanding the entrances at both Adams Street and Jackson Boulevard by the Chicago River, installing a new Canal Street head house entrance elevator, creating more vertical access from the platforms, widening the platforms. We have the ability to, because of the layout of the station, which was very forward-thinking at the time in the 20s, there are intermediate baggage platforms between each track. The platforms to the western end of the station, which are primarily used by Metra, those baggage platforms are no longer needed. So the Phase 1 plan includes removing the baggage platform and shifting the track center so that we can widen the passenger platforms. We'll allow Amtrak and Metra to unload trains faster so that we can bring in multiple trains at the same time. The narrowness of the Metra platforms today prohibits Metra from unloading 2 trains or unloading and boarding a train simultaneously on the same platform. with wider platforms, it'll increase our ability to do that, thus enhancing the throughput of the station. It also involves, the master plan process also involves reactivating a mail platform underneath the post office, which will allow us to board more trains and give us more tracks to use, as well as enhancing train shed ventilation and preparing the conceptual design for even more retail. Again, the master plan process involves some near-term. I've talked about some of the existing conditions and a historic preservation plan, as well as, again, planning to be able to accommodate greater movement. Again, issues that we're dealing with today, congested concourse. You can see the upper level there. The upper photo there is an image of when Metro and Southwest service trains are coming in during the morning rush hour, the congestion that we're dealing with there and the unsafe ability. Can you imagine an Amtrak train coming in with folks from some of our smaller communities having to deal with that? This is what we have to deal with on a daily basis. The lower level here represents an image of the concourse when it's expanded, and that expansion, by the way, is by removing the ticketing and the Amtrak offices that are down on the lower level, which will allow a pass-through from north to south and give folks more of a line of sight and lessen the sort of sense of loss that people have when they're down there. They really can't find their way around because it's really like a maze. By removing the ticketing counters and the Amtrak offices and relocating those to the Great Hall will increase the passenger flow and the ability of the concourse to handle more people. Here's an image here showing the crowding conditions that we face when unloading trains. Notice the narrow platform. Only one train can sight there at a time. Here on the lower level, you can see by shifting the track centers and getting rid of the baggage platform, we've widened the passenger platforms. It also allows us to install vertical access up to Jackson Boulevard and Canal Street, so that not only will folks be able to exit through the concourse, they will be able to leave the platform and go right out to the street. Again, improving the flow of passengers in the station. So an overview of the master development that Amtrak is looking to do, which will activate the station itself, enhance its presence as a commercial entity on the West Loop, also takes into consideration the other property that Amtrak owns in the West Loop, including the parking garage, the air rights over the coming CTA bus facility, and some of the platforms that have not been built over yet. Envisioning or realizing these plans will allow Amtrak to derive more revenue to support our train operations and really serve to turn the station into even more of a center of vibrancy in the western part of downtown, positioning downtown Chicago going forward to be even more the heart of the commercial and business center of the American Midwest. Again, the goals tying it into a vision for the station in the West Loop is a real key component of downtown Chicago. Again, here's some images of some of the near-term things that we have done at Amtrak. You'll notice here in the center, we've installed a Great Hall Service Center. We have pulled some of our employees from behind the ticket counter, and they are out in the public. We have available to our ticket agents there, which we now call CSR, or Customer Service Representatives. They can access and pull up reservations. They can print tickets for folks, provide direction. We have also shifted much of the waiting for Union Station into the Great Hall. It has really activated that space and turned it into quite a vibrant facility, which will help us to activate and rent the retail spaces around the facility. Again, growing our revenue to help us maintain the existing service and grow Amtrak service. One of the things that we unveiled last fall was the new grand staircases. You'll note here, these are the untouchable stairs from the iconic movie of the 80s. What Amtrak was able to do is we went back to the original quarry outside of Rome, where the staircases, where the marble from the stairs came for the 1925 station, went back to the same quarry and bought new marble and replaced those stairs. We had to do so because the stairs were becoming warped and there was a safety concern because the stairs were uneven. But again, an indication of the value and investment that Amtrak is putting into the station. The Fred Harvey, the Red Lion restaurant that I showed you earlier in an image from the past. It has been reactivated as our Legacy Club Priority Boarding Lounge. Passengers, both Metra and Amtrak or anyone in the neighborhood, can purchase access to this room. It provides Wi-Fi, complimentary beverage service. There are games there. There's a library, and really reactivates and acknowledges the beauty of this space. The Metropolitan Lounge construction is proceeding. You can see some of the trim work there. All the walls have been framed up. The floors have been raised. We are working on etched glass partitions, but that construction proceeds apace for an opening sometime this summer. We are opening up unused corridors in the station itself. On the right here was the former Fred Harvey candy shop and ice cream parlor. On the left there, we'll be knocking out those walls and create further passageways between the Great Hall and the concourse, which existed prior. Those were walled off years ago, but we are reopening all of this to increase the flow and increase the value of the retail space. You can see some of what we found when we've uncovered. We've uncovered some of the old signage. You can see there the signage for the Fred Harvey soda fountain and the cigar shop. Well, again, we hope to sort of restore these elements like that because it really adds to the history and sort of connects us with the past of the station as we prepare for a brighter future. A key space in the station, which I think will be of interest to those of us who are fans of historic preservation, is the former women's lounge area. The lounge we rediscovered the lounge several years ago. This had all been covered up and unexposed because of a drop ceiling. We pulled the drop ceiling down and we discovered these wallpaper murals around this sort of grand space which mirrors the Legacy Club to the north. We have engaged an architectural historic preservation firm. They have done an analysis for us on the paint so that we can restore this space to how it looked originally. Turns out those murals were not original to the Women's Lounge when it opened in 1925. They were added at a later date, but we have determined, and this has been codified by the historic preservation folks with the city, that those murals were a part of the room for a long enough time that they really need to be preserved. The one on the right, which you see, has been damaged enough that we will not be able to preserve it, but there are 4 in total, and you will see that we do have and we are proceeding with restoration. You can see we've done a test section here that I've boxed off. It turns out that the mural itself did not cover the entirety of that space. The mural only went up about 75% of the way, and there was paint that was blended in to sort of blend the mural into the rest of the framing. So this has been, we've used a cleaning treatment here to sort of clean the mural and to test out the paint and to clean the frame as well. And we are preparing to sort of move forward and do an entire restoration of that room. Again, elsewhere in the system, we continue to, as sort of the keepers of the railroad in the United States and a responsibility to move forward with advancements in customer service and speed. We continue to work throughout the nation on issues. Rick talked about the FAST bill, which we are very pleased for the first time. That's the Surface Transportation Bill, includes Amtrak in it, includes passenger rail. There is no funding for it, but the fact that we've been included as part of that bill is an indication of the profile, of how the profile of rail has improved, and that there's an acknowledgement that not only by the administration, but by congressmen, both Republican and Democrat, that rail should play a pivotal role in America going forward. We continue to take deliveries of new equipment. Many of you know about our order from CAF. The baggage cars are all on the property and have been deployed across the system. We are preparing, and I am part of a team internally within Amtrak to advance the provision or the availability to bring bicycles on board. We hope to this summer announce that you will be able to roll your bicycles on board baggage cars throughout the system without having to put them in boxes. CAF has delivered to us a prototype diner, a baggage dorm, and a sleeper, and those are in testing now before production of those are fully ramped up. We have expanded Wi-Fi on board the system to the point that 90% of our customers have Wi-Fi available to them on the train, and that includes the Eastern long distance trains that are single level now have Wi-Fi. You can now bring pets on board the train for no longer than 7 hours, but that has proven to be extremely popular among our customer base. We are now offering business class on several of our long-distance trains. I am most excited about what we have done with the Cardinal, which connects New York and Washington with Chicago and Indianapolis via the very luxurious Greenbrier Resort. At White Sulphur Springs, where we do not have a ticket agent, we are now offering baggage service for those customers who are destined for the Greenbrier. The Greenbrier Hotel will actually meet the train and grab folks' luggage off the train and then take it to their rooms at the Greenbrier Resort, very similar to a cruise ship. So again, an enhancement of service. Last year, ridership held steady at about 30.8 million riders. There's some softness there because of fuel prices. That doesn't relieve us of the responsibility to continue to make improvements to sort of stay competitive. We've begun expansion of the Washington Union Station concourse. Many of you may have heard that we ran a Gulf Coast inspection train with the hope of restoring service connecting Florida with New Orleans. And we've got new stations coming around the system, as well as continued investments and upgrades to make our facilities accessible to those who have mobility challenges. I was recently in Michigan and had a chance to sort of check out some of the work that we're doing on the Michigan line upgrades. Michigan calls their line accelerated rail, in acknowledgement that 110 miles per hour is not high-speed rail, but it is an improvement over where we are. We have been contracted by the state of Michigan to upgrade 135 miles of the Chicago-Detroit corridor. We have invested in new main lines. We're installing ITCS, which is the positive train control system. Those are signal bungalows and the wayside towers that allow the ITCS system to work. They interface with the locomotives and with the grade crossing signals and help to prevent derailments. Again, there's an example of the new rail that we've installed, which will allow us to increase those speeds, and new grade crossing apparatus to enhance the safety. We're going away from crossbucks to the grade crossing apparatus. And that's really what I have for you today. And I think Ryan and I, who's going to be speaking from the Metropolitan Planning Council, he's going to talk about Union Station, and he and I together will be able to answer your questions. Thank you.